Dinner for shoes, please.
Hi, welcome to an episode of Dinner for Shoes and Happy Earth Month. Funny story, when the earthquake happened yesterday, my boyfriend Nick said that he felt like that was the earth partying. So, I mean, yeah, it's Earth Month. Like, the earth was like, hey, like, first of all, wake up, like, climate change, save me. But also, it's a month to celebrate me. So it was just like kind of shimmying a bit. So that's interesting. But we are here. We all survived the earthquake. Thank goodness. And we're here to talk about sustainable brands. What else? For this whole month, we are going to feature brands that pride themselves on being sustainable. I'm going to talk in this episode about some of my own personal favorite sustainable brands, and we're going to have some extremely important special guests on this episode. One really specializes in sustainable fashion, and the other is more specializing in sustainable food. So we've got the best of both worlds. And I am excited to sample food today from Shaka Kitchen. I've only ever had something from Shaka Kitchen once, but it was a salad. It was not a Shaka Bowl, which is what I'm having today. So I'm really excited. First, let's talk about the outfit behind the shoes, and we'll talk about how the brands that I'm wearing today are sustainable friendly. It's important to note that like all of these brands that are sustainable, they're sustainable to different levels, right? And this is something that Zoe from the Unethical podcast, who I had on the podcast today, we talk about this in our conversation, but the thing about sustainability to remember is that you want to start small, and sustainability can look different to everyone. So you may, be doing this, you may be making the smallest little change in your life, but that's better than nothing. If you're taking interest in how to be more eco-friendly, like more conscious of your footprint on the environment, then that's a step in the right direction, right? So everything today, everything I'm wearing, everything I'm eating, everything I'm talking about, these are all brands that have taken a step in the right direction. And that's the direction we're going to keep going in this month. Keep on keeping on. Okay, so outfit behind the shoes. First of all, these shoes are by Sarah Flint. This is an amazing white leather pump. I think the coolest detail about these shoes is just the little point and the little V that is cut on top of the upper here, which shows a bit of like toe cleavage, if you will. The thing about Sarah Flint shoes is that they're incredible craftsmanship. Sarah Flint is a favorite brand of Meghan Markle's, so you might have heard of it. And the padding in this pump is like undeniable. You can press on it, you can feel it. This pump is classic to me. It's such a classic shape. Well, it comes to a point. If you just noticed the camera shaking, that was not another earthquake. That was not an aftershock. That was Trish falling into the camera stand. Trish, why don't you come up here? Come up here. So anyway, so I do love Sarah Flint. Now, Sarah Flint is, again, another brand that's taking steps in the right direction. There's a website called Good On You that we're going to discuss in just a few minutes. And Good On You basically lets you know if the brand that you're interested in purchasing from, how well they're doing on their sustainability goals. And it basically gives them like a grade. And for Sarah Flint, they basically said like they're taking steps, but it's not as good as it could be. But what I do want to note about Sarah Flint here is that there's two very important parts of the brand Sarah Flint that I think are, showcasing the brand's goals towards sustainability and kind of like the adjustments that they've made so far. First of all, the brand has taken an oath never to use PVC because it's a synthetic plastic. They use water-based glues in their production process, which is non-toxic to the environment. It's easily recyclable, and it's safe to handle for the artisans that make the shoes. They also, all of the packaging when you do purchase a pair of shoes online is plastic free. The dust bags and the fabric panels in the shoe boxes are made of 100% recycled cotton and designed for reuse. And I also found this to be really interesting. Our compostable shoe sticks are made of sugar beet or sugarcane based PLA. Our tissue paper is 100% recycled, and our boxes are certified by the Forest Stewardship Council, which is a third-party group that verifies that the land or resources being used are managed to preserve biological diversity and benefit the lives of local people and workers. You're a local worker to me. on this set, you're my local worker. Okay, she doesn't care. So I think that that's great, and it's awesome for the brand as a whole, and I think it should kind of encourage everyone to check out Sarah Flint if you haven't yet. But the other thing that I really, really love, and you'll notice this if you listen to all my sustainable episodes this month, I'm a big fan of vintage. I think that that's a great way to get behind the sustainable efforts, and I love shopping vintage. Now, Sarah Flint has launched Sequel, which is an opportunity for shoppers to resell their own pieces of Sarah Flint history. They can sell their pre-loved Sarah Flint styles alongside select pieces from the archives. They can shop them, or they can get credit to shop a new style. So I think that that's great. It's giving the opportunity for cyclical fashion, and why wouldn't you check to see something from the archives? Like, if you like something more than the current stock, because as I mention a lot in all of my conversations about sustainability and about vintage, I just think vintage pieces are so much cooler. I think that they have history. Every piece has a story. It was owned by someone else. It's come a long way. I love that about vintage fashion in general. So that's the shoe. Let's put that back on, put both my pumps back on, because I want to feel super professional and sophisticated and like Meghan Markle, because Meghan Markle likes Sarah Flint shoes. So I feel like Meghan Markle. Okay. My outfit. I love this outfit. I've worn it once for a photo shoot before, but it's by a brand called Henne, and they are an Australian brand. I'm going to read a little bit about them because they really value sustainability in all of their production methods. So first of all, they have apparel, UPPAREL, clothing drops. And what they do, they give a place for their shoppers to donate any textiles they want, and then they use that textiles in the creation of their clothing. You also will get collector points if you donate, and bid farewell to any Henne piece that you own. So this whole mission is basically to get everyone to reuse and recycle. If someone donates a old Henne piece that isn't really fit for wear, the apparel team will break down the textiles into a variety of categories depending on their material and decommissioning required. And this can just become different fiber. Some of this fiber is then used to actually stuff cushions and toys. And some of the fiber is used to create Uptex, which is a completely recycled and recyclable material that can be used for packaging. So that's awesome. So as I mentioned, the brand is Australian born. It was founded in 2019 by sisters and friends, Nadia, Michelle, and Laura. So I love that. I love that it kind of combines like a mission between three women who are sisters and friends. And yeah, they also, it's important to them to come up with highly curated drops where there aren't a lot of pieces in each drop. So they're basically just dropping like small collections that they know contain clothes that will actually be worn. And because of this, they have limited quantities in everything that they're producing. So it's absolutely not fast fashion. And important to note that Henne, the word, I just slapped myself in the face. If anyone noticed that, great. If you didn't, now you definitely will. Go back and see. Henne is Swedish for her, which means, and to them, it means universal style for all. So I really do love this brand. I was instantly attracted to this powder blue color. It's a favorite color of mine. And I, and most importantly, matched it with a ring that actually it's a really pretty shimmering opal stone with this like vintage looking gold. How do I even, you know what it kind of looks like? It looks like one of those bows that you put on top of a present when you're gift wrapping, like one of those like pre-organized bows. What is happening? They just keep going. I can't stop them. But one of those bows, and then the opal ring is on top, and it's like in 4 prongs. I'm going to take a picture so I don't forget to take a picture of this ring because it is really stunning. Yeah, so I love this ring. And what I want to say about it is that it's vintage because it was my grandmother's on my dad's side, who I never met, Grandma Lucy. My dad always says that if I had met Grandma Lucy, we would have gotten along so well because because she is a very giving person, and I also love to give. I love to give people gifts. I love to surprise people. I love to make other people happy. And he said that we share that and we have that in common. So kind of like every time I put on a piece of jewelry that I have from Grandma Lucy, I think about that sentiment, and I hope that's my way of like saying hello to her spirit. Okay. So we've done the outfit. Let's dive into my favorite sustainable brands, and then we'll sample the food, and you'll go check out the interviews that I'm doing with both Zoë, who is the host of a podcast called The Unethical Consumer, which I love because basically what she's doing with this podcast is saying like, hey, we can't all be perfect. Being a consumer, you're gonna be a little bit unethical, but here are kind of the steps we can take to start. So she gives us really good advice there. And then we're gonna go on to, you can't take my fork. You can't take my sustainable wooden fork. No, absolutely not. No. She's taking the fork. She's taking the fork. Did anyone else? I don't know how I'm going to eat. Guess I'll use my fingers. So we will also be talking to, and you'll get to enjoy, an interview with Tatiana Gomez. And she basically, on her marketplace, you can shop it online. She features a bunch of sustainable products in food and homeware, and it's really worth checking out that interview too. So stick around for both interviews. All right, let's get into some of my favorite sustainable brands. There are so many. It's so hard for me to talk about all of them, but I'm going to talk about the ones whose clothing I've worn and that I truly, truly love. Some of them you've seen on other episodes, just as a little sneak peek. Nia Thomas, who was actually on our Black Designers episode. I loved my interview with her, but she creates handcrafted pieces. Her crochet pieces are absolutely amazing. She graduated from FIT in 2017, and her brand is just growing. So definitely check out that brand. Loti or Lotai Studio, Loti. They produce luxury goods that are made from reworked leftover natural textiles. If you like the patchwork look, you're gonna wanna check out this brand. The brand is based in both Lima, Peru and LA. And they use materials that would be otherwise sent to landfills to create these patterns, which is really, really cool and kind of like give them a second life. And this brand was founded by Lottie Bertello. So I'm assuming that Lottie Studio is the pronunciation. At least I figured that out by the end of the sentences I wrote down for myself, right? Kalina Strada, I've talked about Kalina Strada before. I know that I talked about her runway, and I actually put up a reel about it because I love Kalina Strada as a brand. They are such an inclusive brand. Their runway always includes literally every walk of life, which is like what it's like when you walk outside of New York. So super important for that to be reflected on the runway. I think all designers should try to mimic their runways to look like Kalina Strada's. They make products with a few different materials. One is rose silk, which is made from rose bushes and stems. I thought that was so interesting. And then they also make a dead stock fabric, which is basically just like reusing the materials that were used in other collections. And finally, they have a recycled cotton. Now, the coolest thing is if you go to Kalina Strada's website, you can shop by material, by sustainable material instead of shopping by collection or by category. I just love that. I think that's a really unique way of showing that like you pride yourself on these ethical fabrics that you use, right? Lisa Folowio is a Nigerian fashion designer. She was also on our Black Designers episode. I had interviewed her, if you remember. She prides herself on completely avoiding producing in large batches, so kind of similar to Henne. And she repurposes fabrics from her old collections, and she limits herself and can I stop saying and like that? She limits herself to 2 collections a year, which is also just, I think that probably makes for even stronger collections, right? Because you're putting a lot more work and thought into each of those collections, the same way you're putting work and thought into ripping up my Lem rug. Can you not? Okay. Hanifa is another brand that I truly love. Kit. Can we, like, you can't go to the bathroom here. You're literally shoveling the way you shovel when you have to go to the bathroom. So I would prefer it if you go to the litter box. Nope. No. Right. Are we good here? Are we good? Okay, this is not sustainable for the rest of my episode, so something's gonna have to change. Okay. So Hanifa focuses on sourcing raw materials responsibly, such as vegan leather. They have an amazing vegan leather that looks so real. It's beautiful. They also focus on empowering women. And I think my favorite part of the brand is that with every single purchase, 1% of the proceeds goes to a charity of your choice. And you can choose between, I think there's 4 right now on their website that you can choose between. I just absolutely love that. Omnis is a sustainable and affordable brand. So good if you are looking for affordability. They do pop-ups and worldwide shipping. Omnis also means all. And they choose natural fabrics that are biodegradable whenever possible, or monofibers, which means that it's a single blend instead of like a multiple blend, because these are just easier to break down and recycle, right, into new materials. Cult Naked is a favorite of celebrities like Kendall Jenner, Kylie Jenner, Ariana Grande, Margot Robbie, and Hailey Bieber. Mary Furtas is the founder. And basically, if you go to the website, they're saying their phrase. They say they are born from a rebellion against disposable fashion. So obviously, that's super important to them. Maggie Marilyn, I am obsessed with as well. Maggie Marilyn, I think of as like great for like showers. Like if you're invited to like a shower, like I love... Their stuff is really modest, but also feminine. They've got great sets, really beautiful dresses. They have a climate positive status. And they are forging a future in fashion that's transparent, circular, regenerative, and inclusive, according to their website. They're extremely upfront about their fabrics. There are breakdowns of every single fabric they use on their website. Damson Matter is yet another brand. They are run by a small women-led team in North London. The founder, Emma, started the brand in 2020. Now, they make their collections 12 to 18 months ahead of launch, and only 15 to 35 styles are released per drop, which makes a piece, if you own a piece from Damson Matter, extremely exclusive and rare, and you should treasure it. They want to make sure that all of their pieces have staying power in someone's wardrobe. So they're less focused on trends and more focused on like the classics, right? The wardrobe staples. Finally, I'm going to talk about Saint Mojave, Beyonce. I can't stop singing Beyonce music. Like her album is incredible. I love it for so many reasons. This episode is not about that, but it is sustainable in my listening catalog. That is for sure. It is sustainable in my Spotify. But Beyonce has worn Saint Mojave. So I like kind of had to add that on here, and their designs are gorgeous for wedding guest dressing. Saint Mojave was founded in 2018 by Teresa from Hawaii. Their fabrics are ethically sourced and they are recycled. They use organic materials and pre-loved fabrics found at local markets. Okay, finally, what I want to talk about and what I referenced before is Good On You. This you can think of as like the ultimate curation for all sustainable products. You basically go to the search toolbar at the top of this website, type in the brand you're interested in shopping, and see what they give the brand for sustainability score. So they determine just how sustainable the brand is. They shed light on the true production processes behind all of these different brands, and you can source by category. For example, let's say you want to look at like sustainable swimwear and you want to like have, you know, an affordable sustainable swim brand. You can sort by all of that. So you can also use this as a platform to discover new brands, which I love. And that is probably the most important brand to mention out of all the sustainable brands, because you can use it forever. So Good On You. Follow them on Instagram. Check out their website. They're amazing. Okay, let's quickly get into, well, I've got to find my fork because Kit hid it somewhere. But we're going to talk about Shaka Bowl. Okay. Before you go off and listen to my interviews, I'm going to try out the Shaka Bowl. So Shaka Bowl was actually founded in Hoboken. So I love that. And I thought that it was so important to obviously, you know, feature this restaurant, or it's kind of like a kitchen, obviously. All right, let's go find the fork. Kit, where did you put the fork? I found it on the floor. Okay, so Shaka Kitchen. Let's talk about it quickly before we sample it. And first of all, let me just say this looks like a beautiful bowl. Their story begins in 2014 when the founders, Kirsten and Krista Gormley, moved to the small town of Hilo, Hawaii. They discovered a new way of living there. It was all based on sourcing food from the land. And they realized how good they felt when they were limiting their diet to raw, natural ingredients. And they wanted to bring that home to Hoboken. Now, when they got back home, they wanted to kind of like bring their community together with this whole ethos. And aspiring chef Kirsten fell in love with the flavors that she experienced on the island. I'm reading off their website right now. But basically, she knew that like easy access to these delicious flavors weren't readily available. They basically became the first shop to offer both acai bowls and Shaka bowls or like poke bowls at one place. Now they have 2 locations in Hoboken, and I believe they're opening up another one in New Jersey. And what's important is that they do source their ingredients from local sustainable farms, which means that these farms obviously take a lot of care into how they're farming the food, and that's awesome. But I will say just like one review is that it was really expensive, but listen, we all know, and that's kind of like the issue with trying to be sustainable. And I mean, something that Zoe talks about on her podcast a lot, like being ethical is expensive, you know? So anyway, I got a classic Shaka bowl, which comes with zucchini noodles. I got it with tuna and with salmon. I added avocado and a fried egg and ginger. I added a lot of stuff. All right, we're gonna try it. That was really good. Wow. Really, really good. I want to make sure I try the salmon too. But this is delicious. It's honestly everything I could have asked for lunch today. The zucchini noodles do not break easily. Oh my God, that's so good. I'm just going to try a little bit of the ginger too so I get full review on all the ingredients. I love pickled ginger. Don't tell my boyfriend I just dropped that cucumber. Okay. The other thing we got is buffalo cauliflower, and I need to try that too. But I give this bowl, I will say, like, there's mango in it, there's carrots, there's really fresh ingredients, no cilantro. The sauce is really light. It's not heavy. It makes for the absolute perfect lunch. Like, I give this bowl probably an 8.2 out of 10. I will say visually it's beautiful, and I think that's important because we love food that looks really good, right? But what I noticed before I took a bite is that it had probably been about 30 minutes since it was made, if not a little bit more. And zucchini noodles are notably, or zoodles, are notably like like they're very wet after you make them, right? And I saw like the juice sitting on the bottom and I was like, I don't know how that's going to taste, but it really tastes so good. Like it combines with the dressing that's on this bowl and it just makes it like so delicious. It's like soaked in the sauce. Really good. All right, let me try the cauliflower and then you can go and listen to my amazing interviews. All right. Oh, yeah. That is so good. Nick, did you like the cauliflower?
Yeah.
Nick liked the cauliflower. He's in his room. I lock him in his room when I record episodes. His room is my room. But I know why Nick liked this, and it's because it's spicy. Nick loves spice. Nick, I think there's ranch dressing in the bag. I think I saw something white. But yeah, so Shaka Kitchen all the way. You will spend a little bit more money, but I think it's worth it to treat yourself, to try it, and also to introduce yourself to like this way of eating and living. On that note, go check out my interviews. They will be playing one after the other. First, you're going to hear from Zoe, who runs the Unethical podcast, the Unethical Consumer podcast, and then you're going to hear from Tatiana. Go enjoy. Let's talk a little bit about just like your career path and the podcast and how it all came to be.
Okay, so my career path, I just had to like to briefly describe it. I'll try to encapsulate it as quickly as I can. Currently, I guess I'm a writer and I'm a writer and podcaster. I'm curator working in both the art and fashion landscapes, and I'm based in London. Specifically about the podcast, The Unethical Consumer, which I'm a host of, was, I'd say, I describe it as the brainchild and the result of my master's project, which was started at the Condé Nast College of Fashion and Design in London. And also where I was like a frequent student writer as well, because I was going and studying there to get my master's degree in fashion journalism and media practice. We're still learning that. And I covered all topics that related to fashion business, industry change, technology, and sustainable fashion. So just throughout that year, I became increasingly interested in the idea of how we could further the discussion behind what it means to be truly sustainable, because I wanted to delve further into those discourses and conversations around sustainability and sustainable fashion that were not just surface level, i.e. like greenwashing, and only focused on those type of headlines that we saw during that time, which I think was pre-COVID.
Yeah.
So where people were just trying, I think you'd see just ending headlines, and I'll go into that a bit later, what preceded that, because that was actually the summer course that I did, where we had to pitch headlines that had to do with these and people. And so my tutors and anyone who would ask at the time, they'd be like, but I don't really understand what sustainability means. It's just an easy topic about like makeup products that are eco-friendly. What does that actually mean?
Yeah.
So that's where that initial interest started. And the original tagline for my podcast was every piece of clothing has a story. And so it really describes the type of guests that I have on my show and who I interview, because they're all people who are working in the art and fashion world. I interview artists, designers in art world and fashion world professionals. Not just because those are where my interests lie and where I'm working in, who I know and I am supportive of, but because I think that true sustainability lies first in people or consumers being able to value a piece of clothing as an artwork or as a piece of art that has a story and a concept behind it.
Yeah, for sure. What are some of the ways that you feel that like the fashion industry can be changing, both on like an immediate scale and then like a far out scale?
I think the biggest thing probably is less runway shows, design, this emphasis fashion, artisanship as well. And then the big thing also is you definitely need to research.
What like maybe affordable, sustainable brands do you like to shop? And, you know, for someone who does kind of want to start small, maybe hasn't like learned a lot about sustainability yet, what brands do you consider like great entry points?
Number one is Vinted. I think for affordable, very affordable, I'll say cheap secondhand thrifted clothing, you can definitely go there. And the Real Real is my other one. And then Vestiaire is another one that I would recommend too that I really like. But the Real Real also, that's my tried and true brand. Also with other independent designers that I found. I have two of them. Can I show you? So I have two.
Yeah.
One of them is called, I'm actually wearing two. So one of them is called It's Grouper. So
I love
this.
that.
This is also, it's a hairband as well, which I wore a lot. I wore both of these a lot to these recent fashion weeks, and I've tagged them way too much on Instagram. But they are, I believe they're from Manchester. They're, I think it's a sustainable fashion brand as well, which, speaking of local artisans, it's someone that I want to champion too. And I also found them, they recently sold them through the National Portrait Gallery or National Gallery in London. So there's an art and fashion connection there.
Awesome.
But that's also championing local artisans too. And then the other one that I recently got that I got complimented on, this was actually affordable.
Okay.
This was a small independent designer called Melt RP London.
Okay.
She's a great designer here. But this one was made from upcycled t-shirts as well.
Yeah.
And then also, I debated whether to put this in as well, but for people who want to explore, I feel bad because this is all in the UK and London, but I think that's okay. But everyone knows in the US, I think everyone knows what Primark is.
Yeah.
I believe these are two different collaborations. I do not shop Primark really at all. I don't shop it at all, but something that I thought was interesting is like a recent collaboration they've done with Worn Well, which some Primark locations, not in all of them.
Okay.
They have a section where it's just a thrift store.
Wow.
And you do secondhand clothing.
That's awesome.
So that's an interesting thing where I don't know how sustainable that makes it. You're still going into a Primark store and buying fast fashion, but it's an entirely different brand that they're
Yeah,
collaborating with. That if you look at it, it's secondhand clothing. It's secondhand clothing very obviously. Like I bought
totally.
like a Kappa jacket or something, or just something that was very obviously from a different time period. But that would be more. I think that would be more affordable too, from a more affordable price point. That I think is interesting.
Definitely,
Um,
definitely. Yeah.
yeah,
I mean, that what you're making me think of is like this is probably one of the first times Primark has collaborated with a sustainable brand.
yeah,
And I think of like Urban Outfitters, how they have Urban Renewal, which is obviously like if you like Urban Outfitters, shopping Urban Renewal, which is like their upcycled
yeah.
like clothing is great. But this is probably one of the first times that Primark has done that. So that's really exciting, especially for the UK
Yeah.
market.
Amazing. I know. Yeah, I think I didn't even think about that. Thank you for bringing in perseveres.
Yeah, yeah. But you're
Perseveres.
so right because most of us
Yeah,
think like these affordable brands are fast fashion and that they're not doing anything that's a little
yeah,
bit more sustainable, but there are ways to like step into that store and be a little bit more sustainable.
yeah. And I think you can avoid go. Yeah, you can kind of just avoid going to just things that are more exploitative. But we're talking about things like I'm kind of a little bit my niche in this part of the fashion industry is like I can kind of go into the gray areas of the ethics of what it is, and that's why
Yeah.
I think it's interesting.
Yeah. In talking about the future of the unethical consumer, have you maybe learned anything in this journey? Maybe it's from someone that you had on the podcast, or maybe it's just from the journey as a whole that is kind of suggesting where you want to go next with the brand. Like, what can we expect to come from the unethical consumer?
I mean, the biggest lesson is buying less. I
Yeah.
think what I wanted to focus on is just the shows I attended at Fashion Week. I
Mm.
think as someone who comes from background as well, for some reason I've had a lot of Asian designers and artists just naturally on it. But I love celebrating international designers, global designers because they for people who especially who are East Asian and designers particularly, that's what I've learned. Craftsmanship is something that's inherent in their culture. And that's why it's so important to celebrate their traditions as well, because for
Hmm.
them, it's a long-standing tradition. It's part of what they do, like an emphasis on design and like the detail that comes with that, whether it's like creating something like tailoring is something that just people do for centuries, if you
Yeah.
look at it like and also shopping and maybe like for example we've had a lot of South Asian designers shopping like for mothers and daughters is just something that people they make an event out of it.
Yeah.
Like they make an event out of it, like for some they have like their own standards as well, but also that's something that's also just naturally part of it doesn't really have to do so much with class as well. Like it's part of like who they are and what's more familiar as well.
Hmm.
It's part of their family too. But I would love to just continue to focus on supporting women designers, entrepreneurs too. Want to continue doing that, and also local artisans like It's Rupert if they would like to come on my podcast because I'm a big fan because I promoted them so much, and and more international designers too who to celebrate those people that because that goes into the sustainable discussion at the end of the day, the sustainable fashion conversation.
So let's talk a little bit about your background. If you want to just kind of tell me how sustainability became such a passion for you and how you really got like involved in the business.
Well, although I was born in New Jersey, I spent a good portion of my childhood in Colombia until I was about like age 7 that I moved back. And then when I came back to the States, I realized that life was a little different here.
Mhm.
And that some things as small as getting shoes repaired um, were not really like as much of a thing here in the States.
Yeah.
So I really started to question things as one typically does as a young kid. So that really started from an early age, kind of asking questions of why this and why not that and all that. So I ended up, kind of continuing my life here in the States as so. And I think a big sort of awakening was in college when I took a climate change class. Even though I was a business student, we still had the science credits that we had to do. So that climate change class really taught me about the carbon footprint that we all have, and just kind of asking questions of how my day-to-day is contributing to, climate change. And right after that, I got my scuba diving certification, which really opened my eyes to a lot of things, and particularly our effects in the ocean, and how my day-to-day, as kind of far removed as the ocean and the coral are from us, it doesn't take away from the fact that we're still connected in this ecosystem.
100%. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that you, like, from an early age, were always questioning things. I feel like that just, it gave you the foundation, obviously, to do what you're doing now. So it's great that continued as you grew up,
Yeah. And then, like, as you, learn more, they say knowledge is power, but really the power comes in applying that knowledge.
Right.
And so that's really kind of what led me to then start my small business.
So in starting the small business, let's talk about a little bit, like, what has been your biggest learning? Like, obviously there's a lot of research you can do, but did you learn anything in starting the business, maybe from a business perspective or just from other people in the industry, like about sustainability and how we can introduce it to the consumer?
So there's obviously a lot of trials and tribulations as a small business owner, and especially when you have never worked in a retail job, and have to like deal with like inventory and things like that. And at the time of when I started Ceres Market, I was recovering from a traumatic brain injury. So I had a concussion that happened during the pandemic. Stupid fall at home, just, stupidly could have killed myself sort of thing. And it really, really set me back physically. To kind of provide a bit of context, at that time, I was training for a triathlon. So I was biking miles, running miles, swimming for almost an hour. And to kind of get knocked down like that and not even be able to take your dog on a walk without having a headache and getting dizzy was a big change. And so I would say that it was like a really dark period of my life that, I was already getting my feet wet when it came to sustainability. I had gotten a corporate social responsibility certificate at NYU, and just kind of like wanting to go in this direction. And my baby was born, Ceres Market was born during that dark period of my life, because I was just kind of like, I need to find a way to do this. It's kind of like I had to step away from the corporate sales job that I had before, step away from the computer, from the screen, from the stress, and just kind of like do something that makes me happy and fulfills my soul. And that's essentially when I signed up for like my first flea market at like a local, a flea market on a Sunday. It was like Father's Day weekend, and my uncle helped like let me borrow a tent and a table and a chair, and I got some table covers and some inventory to start selling. And I really, am grateful and appreciate so much my family and friends that were there to support me, and all of the other professionals in this field of sustainability that I've met and connected thereafter, that have really been able to like guide me towards understanding the possibilities with this business. So yes, there's definitely very uncommon stuff that I've had to deal with from a health and a personal standpoint in that sense. But then I also have had to deal with some of the very common things of worrying about, is there enough profit to cover overhead, and did I make enough money at this market to cover the table cost at least, or even break even from it. So yeah, it's been a journey to say the least, but super grateful and appreciative of like the support and enthusiasm around the mission that I've received from loved ones and complete strangers, which is amazing validation to get that, your concept and idea resonates with other people.
Absolutely. I feel the same way. I mean, we do totally different things, but I also feel like it's most gratifying when like a stranger appreciates what you're doing in a way, because like you kind of expect that your loved ones will. But I give you so many props for obviously starting that and kind of like making good out of a really dark stage in your life, because I'm an athlete too. You seem like to be an incredible athlete. We're going to get into the plant-based stuff in a little bit, but when I'm injured, it's the darkest points of my life. So I completely relate to that. And like, that's amazing. Let's talk a little bit about like how you did at that point and maybe how you do now get involved with the different brands that you sell on the marketplace. How do you go about that? Is there kind of like do brands reach out to you randomly? Are you doing a lot of the outreach? Like, how does it work?
Yeah. So at first, I had like an Excel spreadsheet with like the types of products that I wanted to be selling, and having to like go directly to their website, apply as like a wholesaler, and kind of go through that whole process. I quickly learned how sometimes that's a barrier of entry for small business owners, because these brands and companies require you to have like a minimum size order, and you just don't have that volume to meet those kinds of requirements. So I would say that's probably one of the biggest challenges that I faced. And thankfully, I was able to come across a wholesale platform that multiple brands, are on there, and their minimum order isn't as crazy. And so I'm super grateful for that resource, and being able to kind of like get billed and see all of your orders and invoices in one place rather than kind of have them scattered around from the different brands that you are connecting with. I do receive inquiries from certain brands for us to carry their products. Unfortunately, just kind of given some of the values and rubric that we kind of have when it comes to carrying certain brands, they just might not meet that specific requirement. One of the biggest things about Ceres Market, so the focus is on being both plastic free and vegan, because that was essentially the problem I was trying to solve at that time of wanting to go plant-based and vegan. Plastic free and vegan after my scuba diving certification. And I couldn't find them in one place. I just kind of have to go to a lot of different stores and online platforms and things like that for my own personal use. And then that's why I was like, you know what? I'm going to open up my own little marketplace for this. And so they'll reach out, but like I said, sometimes when you're like reading the ingredients lists, there's beeswax in there. And just other things that might not be vegan or can have a possibility of having something in there that's not vegan. So I would say that.
Yeah, rubric is a great word for it. And I think like, even though you might feel bad that you can't necessarily work with some of these brands, like in the long run, you're helping. So my mom is vegan, for example, and like you're helping so many people that are looking for that resource where it's like, you can trust that every product on this market is completely vegan. And obviously all of the amazing like additions that you bring to it with being plastic free is just like incredible. So it's like, you have to do that as a business owner. You have to kind of employ that. Yeah. So, okay. In your wildest dreams, like what do you see as the future of Ceres Market? Like what would you really like to make of it?
I have this vision already stamped right here in my head, and I'm manifesting it. And I have like a little vision board here with a picture. I'll actually see it. Can I take this down and show you? So This is a cutout of a magazine that I have found. It literally says places you'll go. And this is a container store, shipping container, that has been repurposed into a store. And
that's awesome.
I ended up just putting our logo over it to cover the store. And I printed that out, and then I pasted it over the magazine paper with the palm trees.
I love that.
Because I want to have a marketplace that is present around the world, that offers anything and everything that you need to live your everyday life in a plastic-free and vegan way. So a visual that I like to kind of give people, or specifically those that are familiar with the business Italy in New York. Are you familiar with Italy?
Yeah.
So, ever since the first time I ever stepped into it, it was like this aha moment that like that's essentially the market that I want to create with Ceres, where I carry a variety of, let's say I have a section that's only for spices and herbs that you can go and refill, and even use these herbs and spices for holistic health treatments per se, having vitamins and supplements that are sold but in glass jars instead of plastic jars. Having the fresh produce and grains and all of that also being plastic free and refillable. Having a vegan deli. So the same exact experience that you have when you want to go get prosciutto at Italy or at a grocery store that you order by the pound or by, a certain weight, to be able to get vegan hams and cheeses in that same experience that you would in these places. And, beauty products and stuff, everything that you find in a grocery store, all under one roof, plastic free and vegan. And I think a biggest differentiator and contributor to trying to push and normalize a bit more the whole circular economy piece of it is that instead of you going and buying appliances, an air fryer or anything like that, you just rent them. So, for example, if you wanted to have a brunch with your friends on the weekend, rent the waffle maker. But you can also just buy the flour in a refill format and get your blueberries or your chocolate chips or whatever you want to do with the waffles, and make a bunch and then freeze them so that you're not buying waffles from the frozen aisle section in a plastic bag in a carton box, So really trying to make it as seamless as possible for people to make their own foods. Even when it comes to appliances, not have to hoard, stuff that they don't use as often, right? And just making it as easy as 1, 2, 3, where you're able to kind of get this all in one market.
I absolutely love that. And it's crazy that doesn't exist.
I
mean, my mom and I are always talking about we'll go to a restaurant and we'll be like, see, this restaurant can make tofu. Why can't this restaurant make tofu? Or the way this restaurant is making grilled chicken and it's a fast-ish food place. Why can't they just do the exact same treatment to tofu? It's even easier. So it's but you're envisioning something so much bigger, and it's totally necessary, and it's crazy it doesn't exist. I absolutely love that vision. And I love that you have it visualized on the little clip, because I feel anytime you put something in front of your face, it's such a corny thing because people say to do it all the time, but it really works. So I guess, you could have kind of just delved into my next question a bit, but because a lot of people who are interested in going vegan and recycling, I feel a lot of people just automatically think it's an expensive way of life. And so obviously dealing with the price hike and inflation on all of these goods, is that one of the ways that you kind of envision your brand fighting that, kind of with the, you can borrow this appliance and whatnot?
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. that was one of the biggest things when I even started my personal journey, even before starting the business, was price comparison.
Yeah.
And considering the way that we've been kind of brainwashed to be in this constant consumption cycle and and rewiring your brain and learning how, yes, you might be investing in something, that you're going to have for a really long time. You know what I mean? And it just kind of needs to be a little bit of a mindset shift of understanding how, by taking in certain chemicals or putting certain things on your body, like it may be cheaper, but you're going to pay for that down the road.
Yeah.
And if it's not you, then somebody else or something else will be paying for that down the road.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, that's kind of like what I alluded to earlier about this disconnect about out of sight, out of mind. I don't live by the beach, so I don't really kind of care about the coral reefs or the fish. No, you know what I mean?
Right.
So, being price conscious was definitely something that is part of really high up there on our rubric of brands and products that we are selling, because we understand that consumers are still in that process of understanding this, and kind of reverting back to old school mindset and comparing a bamboo toothbrush with a plastic toothbrush, you know? And so we are very conscious of where we're setting the pricing at for our products, the marketplaces that we are showing up at. We are very much, wanting to make sure that the BIPOC community is also getting access to these types of products. There is, interest on their behalf,
of course.
A lot of a good majority of BIPOC people are, first generation immigrants, and sustainability is a core piece in their communities and their countries. And it's really nice to be able to connect with other people and understand how sustainability looks or what it looks like in their countries. And what they do in their cultures that we're perhaps not doing or even know anything about. So that's something that I genuinely love to highlight as part of this journey, is showing how sustainability is being done across cultures. One really awesome example was a friend of mine. She moved to Thailand and she's volunteer. She's working at an animal shelter. She randomly posted one day these images of the grocery store and the produce section. They were all individually wrapped in banana leaves and tied, with natural yarn. So I was like, oh my God, can I please repost this on Ceres Market's Instagram? Like, this is a dream. Like, and that too went into my vision board, because it's like, whether that's how we do it or not, that's just what I'm manifesting, that if people are kind of about getting produce that is not, packaged in a sustainable way, packaged in general, that at least we're doing it in a sustainable way.
And you're seeing it's possible. And I mean, there's so much learning that comes with that. And this whole business that you started, it's very cool. Continue. Sorry if I cut you off.
And so, it's something that's very near and dear to my heart. And like I said, making sure that this is accessible, that, again, that BIPOC voices are being heard in terms of what their needs are, and what their practices are in their cultures. So I'd say, honestly, my favorite market to go to, or, events to sell at, is the Indigenous Peoples Day Festival at Randall's Island in October. and the amount of, warmth, love, support that I feel from that community every single time I go to that 2-3 day weekend event, it's enough to carry me through the next year, So,
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that
I'm
so
super
much.
grateful for the community for sure.
That's awesome. Okay, let's take a little step back and go into when you got your scuba diving license. And I know it kind of does go hand in hand with like you're discovering that this was very important mission for you. But were there any moments of like awakening, or I don't know, like maybe it was like during the process of actually, training to get the license where you had like this vision?
Yeah. So there was two actually. One of which I actually talk about in my TED Talk because it was so interesting how you are in this other world. You literally feel like an astronaut. Like you feel like this extraterrestrial world. Like this is not your home, right?
Yeah.
And so being down there in one of the dives, we went to this beautiful coral reef area, and it was just teeming with life. And towards the end of the dive, as we were kind of going back to the boat, there was a school of angelfish that passed by us. And one of them trailed behind and was just kind of like watching me and like observing me, and just kind of like telepathically, I heard them say, well, who are you? What are you doing here?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so I felt like super connected with that specific fish, apart from the fact that I had already observed and seen so many other, animals in this environment, seeing their personalities and their, body language and stuff like that. So it was just like really awesome to observe them. But this specific interaction with this fish is just kind of like, oh, you see me, like sort of thing. So that was really cool, and just kind of understanding that like at the end of the day, like when we see fish, what we're usually accustomed to is like literally they are a fish out of water. Like there is just no way for you to kind of connect with them in that sense, and it's just super different when you're in their environment. So that was a big one. And then another part was actually like a mini panic attack that I got while I was down there. I had done super well while I was preparing and kind of going through the motion of the course and the classes and with the instructor. And there was one point where like I just felt like my air just like was like my throat was drying up basically. Yeah. And so I just kind of felt like I couldn't breathe properly. And so it really, the instructor was like, take a moment, ground yourself. Like, yes, this is very scary, but take a moment to just breathe and center yourself. And I feel like that's kind of how it feels like being a small business owner, is that there's a lot of, unknown, and you're going into the abyss. Yeah. And you are going to get into your head, and there's going to be moments that you really have to coach yourself to properly ground yourself and kind of clear your mind so that you're not, freaking out about this big shark coming after you and like there's nothing there. Yeah. Yeah. I love those two examples. They're so different, but like they totally make so much sense. And I feel like when you said the thing about the fish and you being in like the fish's space and home, I think I kind of feel that way every time I walk into the ocean. I'm just like, now, like in a way where like I am a little scared. I'm like, we don't know what's under there. Sometimes I can't see what's under there, but like I'm just kind of like letting go and like entering their space and being like, whatever you will do with me, you will do with me kind of thing. But I love how you related like the moment of panic kind of to just being a small business, because it is like really scary. It's a scary venture to take on, especially because you had this like foundation, you had a job, like you made a bold move by switching over. So it makes a lot of sense. Okay, so let's shift gears a little bit. If there was someone who wanted to start small, maybe they didn't want to be vegan, but they were just interested in sustainability and learning how they can just recycle more and, maybe compost or do something that is going to reduce their carbon footprint. What are some ways that you recommend starting small? Yeah. So I touch on this as well for the TED Talk, shamelessly plugging it in. There were
We'll make a part of this.
So
Yeah.
there were 3 core messages that I had on there, which the first one was the kitchen is key. So basically, the way that we're eating, of course, like going plant-based, it doesn't need to be 100% plant-based, right? Like you can do that 80-20 rule. And some people just kind of think that it has to be all or nothing.
Yeah.
No one is perfect. I am on this platform letting y'all know that I am not perfect either. I'll say that there's some stuff that I'll make certain exceptions for, because I wouldn't be able to sustain this lifestyle otherwise sometimes, you know?
Yeah.
So don't be so hard on yourself. There is that saying that, it's better to do it imperfectly than like not to do it at all. And so I know it's a lot fancier way that that quote actually goes. But
same messaging. Yeah.
And so starting out with that, sort of like doing that 80-20 rule, doing a trash audit, like understanding like what are you throwing away? What are you what food scraps are you creating? What can you do with those food scraps? Could you save them and freeze them and then use them for veggie broth? Or compost it and grow your own garden? The other key point that I highlight too is sharing and repairing is caring. And so this kind of goes back to this idea and concept when it comes to like the circular economy about reusing and renting what you can.
Yeah.
And there's also been this growing trend of repair cafes or repair clinics that put together an event to bring volunteers together and offer repair services for stuff that you need help with, whether it's your hair dryer, a fan, a coffee maker, or any random little thing like that. And then the other piece was just thinking about your everyday habits. Something as simple as you brush your teeth every day, you eat every day, you commute every day, and things like that. So something as simple as doing like swapping out certain products, basically.
Totally.
So that was actually the last point that I made in the TED Talk, which was choose daily swaps, because that's essentially the biggest way that you could, from your own habits, make small adjustments. So replace that plastic toothbrush with a bamboo toothbrush, or your toothpaste with toothpaste tablets. And, even with women, makeup. I did a get ready with me reel as I was getting ready for the TED Talk, showing the different makeup brands that I use.
Oh, I love that.
That are specifically packaged in glass or carton or something that is, not plastic. So just small things like that will continue to just add up. And yes, I will caution there's going to be some trial and error and products that you're going to like and you're not going to like, but that happens every day regardless of if you're plastic free or vegan. So why not give it a shot in a way that will be healthier for you and the planet?
Yeah. And all these little like swaps and changes that you're referencing, they're also easily Googleable. Like even like the repair markets, like it takes 2 seconds to search for that. And I mean, even if it's just like reading one article a day so that you can learn about this little swap and then like the next day bringing it into action, So those are great points. Because we are a fashion and food podcast, do you have any favorite like fashion? I know there are a lot of like brands that claim to be sustainable. They may be doing a little bit of work or being upfront about like their fabrics and where they're sourcing them from, but maybe not completely sustainable. So what are your favorites? And feel free to talk about food too, if there are any additional places you like to shop.
Definitely. So to be honest, it all starts with not buying more, right? Like use what you got, do a clothes swap with friends. It's a cute, girls' night idea that you guys get together and just kind of bring clothes that you don't, wear anymore or don't fit, and swap clothes like that way. Another thing I also try to avoid is just buying from fast fashion, of course, and thrifting. So I would say that the brands and places that kind of come to mind, first, I'd love to shout out a local store. It's called 2nd Street in Montclair.
Okay.
Absolutely love that store. I will go there and drop money for sure every time I go. But then there's like online, so the Real, ThredUp, randomly Facebook Market, you might find some stuff on there as well. You know? So yeah, I would say those are probably like the top, kind of picks for me.
Let's switch gears again and talk a little bit about your plant-based journey as an athlete. I watched Game Changers long ago, and I did the whole I think I was like fully vegan, like fully committed for probably a full year, if not a little bit more. Now I'm like a pescatarian. Like you said, like it's hard to be perfect, but during the week, I definitely try to just eat like tempeh, tofu. I try not to do fish too much during the week, but like on the weekend, it's always a little bit harder with the restaurants and everything. So basically, what are maybe some tips you have for an athlete who is nervous about getting in enough protein and enough fuel? What have you found really works for you?
So I did a list, like same thing as you said, like Google has all our answers.
Yeah.
And I literally Googled like plant-based proteins, and like I wrote them all down, and everything that you listed, but adding on legumes, right? Beans, peas, even like quinoa, replacing rice with quinoa. Sauces, there's some sauces, that just will add that extra little bit of taste to something that's very bland, like tempeh or tofu. So just kind of seeing that whole like breakdown of proteins and like how I could get creative with incorporating that in my diet. So perfect example, breakfast. I also try to avoid processed foods as much as I can. So 2 big things that I replaced was the breakfast patties of like Beyond sausage, Beyond Meat. So they had their breakfast ones, and the Just Egg. Yeah. So I replaced those with the Jack and Annie's breakfast sausage, which is made out of jackfruit. Okay. Right. And then the egg, I make it out of chickpea flour. Really? Yeah, I buy that. I'll sprinkle in maybe some smoked paprika, a little bit of turmeric, a little bit of black pepper. We do, and this is actually something awesome when it comes to incorporating your cultural, gastronomy in your food, and your vegan food is really important. So in Colombia, we have what's called hogao, and hogao basically is sauteed tomatoes with scallion. That sounds good. So that we kind of like pre-make that here at home, because that's what they put in the eggs for breakfast to just give them a little bit more like taste. So I basically just do the same thing with like my chickpea flour. So mix it up, part water, part flour. And then I use my milk frother to like get it nice and like fluffy. And then I mix it in with the hogao. So that kind of like makes it for it to kind of be like a whipped egg. Yeah, the consistency. Texture. And I do it sort of like in an omelet format. So I'll do like a breakfast sandwich for myself with the chickpea flour omelet, the breakfast sausage, or sorry, breakfast patty, avocado, bitchin sauce. I don't know if you've had it before.
I've heard of it.
Yeah. Delicious. And here's the thing, like, it comes in a plastic container, you know, and so this is where it's like, I'm not perfect. I try to avoid plastic in all aspects of my life, but unfortunately there's just certain foods out there that are not yet in plastic packaging. Now, you know, when I have Ceres Market, will I reach out to them and be like, hey, can we do a sort of closed loop system where you send us big tubs of containers and then we just refill it for our customers and they bring their own containers and we just refill it for them? Yeah, like that's the goal. But I gotta, you know, test the product out first.
Of course, yeah, of course.
So yeah, and then just adding on all the other, you know, red onion, pepper, you know, veggies and stuff to the actual breakfast sandwich, and I'm good to go. And then, for example, for lunch, making sure, again, I have some sort of protein, multiple forms of protein in it. Doing veggie patties, burger patties, just kind of getting like a variety of those. Yeah. Also not perfect because they do come in like those little single plastic things. So again, like, I know I'm not perfect. I'm trying my best. It's just in the way that society and grocery stores are currently set up. Yeah. Is essentially what I'm trying to revolutionize with Ceres Market. Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, you have to be honest, first of all, but you are also holding yourself accountable by, you know, working on this huge project that in the long run, you do want to change these things. So I think, you know, you are more than okay in what you're doing. And that, first of all, that breakfast sounds delicious. So I definitely want to try that. I will make it for anybody. I love making vegan food and just kind of getting people's reactions. Yeah. Just how good and delicious something is, because they just underestimate and think everything is just so bland. Yep. Like, if that was the case, like, I'd be sick and starving. Hopefully we have some people who like want to try it when they hear this conversation. Part of the services that I started offering some time ago with Ceres was coaching services, because some people kind of feel overwhelmed with the many aspects of their life that plastic has, you know, taken over in, and maybe feeling just overwhelmed with not knowing where to start. And so I love being able to coach people based on what their priorities are, what their goals are, being made felt heard about their challenges, because they're not the only ones facing them. Of course. I love that. So do you still offer the counseling? Is that still a part? Yeah. That's amazing. I think that's like, so, I mean, you know, so much. And I feel like that for someone who is overwhelmed, like, knowing that they have that option might make them feel a little bit better about it. And it's like, even for the people who are telling you, we're not going to make this change, like, we won't budge here, by just taking the meeting with you, that is kind of like the first step in the process. Yep. That was very well said. Thank you for watching our lovely interviews with Tatiana and Zoe. We appreciate it so much. Sustainable kittens for the win. Like, subscribe, tell your friends about Dinner for Shoes. Don't push me away like she is. Bye.